Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you on this Monday morning. Big weekend we just had. A lot of great college football games. And I think some of them turned out like people thought, but let's start down the list. Audrey, come here and turn the light on. Help. And Notre Dame, Ohio State. You know, I read a good story about that game before the game. And the guy said, I cannot pick Notre Dame in a big game because they won't win it. They had won 10 of the previous 11 home games under the lights in South Bend. But it really is all about who you're playing. Ohio State pulled it out at the end. And Ryan Day, I mean, good God, he was like a roid rage going off on Lou Holtz for questioning his team. That was pathetic. I mean, it really is. We've got people that are so sensitive. You say something about their team, they have a hissy fit. I mean, my goodness. Get over it. And number one rule is you can't get emotionally attached to the teams that you cover. That was ridiculous. I mean, you know, okay, you won the game, but I think Notre Dame, because of the way college football is this year, will be back, and they'll be in the hunt, I think, throughout the whole season. So that'll be a fun one to watch. We got a great show in store for you today. Mitch Davis, the MitchDavisShow.com, checks in with us. George Plaster up in Nashville. Plaster on sports, covering the SEC, college football. Franz Beard, GatorBetMedia.com, will weigh in with his great insight, his daily thoughts, his one final pithy thought. His stuff every morning is show prep for me. I use a lot of what he says. I always give him credit. Great writer, incredible mind. Wess Moore, ESPN 103.7 The Buzz in Little Rock, will check in with us as well, as we really got a lot, again, to cover. Follow us on Twitter at @sidelines_live, and do us a favor. We're trying to build this YouTube channel now. We've got a lot of listeners. Let's get viewers. It's very easy. You get that link in the morning, or when you see it, just go to YouTube /@sidelines_live. Mash the subscribe button, and you'll get a notification every time we go live, which is 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, as they say in the South, Monday through Saturday, 8 to 10 a.m. Central, 6 days a week, at least 25 shows a month, over 300 shows a year. We ain't part-time, and we're full court press, college football, basketball, baseball, recruiting. We covered all. Obviously, we delve a little bit into the pro sports because these guys and gals go on and play professional sports. And we'll talk about football all over the country. Mitch, hey, look, man, let me say this. There was a lot that happened over the weekend. I know you cover Mississippi State and Ole Miss, but you cover the big picture of college football in the South. And it's all connected like a fault line to football all over the country. But I did see signs of life with Mississippi State's offense Saturday. But that's coaching malpractice, the offense that they had him in, Will Rogers, the quarterback, for the first 3 games. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think it was one of those things where they're trying to get updated with the new system. By the way, it's always good to be on with you, Rob, and always appreciate you having me on. It was a great weekend of college football. Of course, Ole Miss down to Alabama. We'll talk about that. As far as Mississippi State, I think the first 3 weeks were kind of one of those things where they had a test pilot. They had to see what worked. They had to see, okay, do we need to go back to the old system? Do we need to stay with this system? And I think with the athletes that Mississippi State has, we saw it Saturday night on offense for the Bulldogs. You open that offense up, you let Tulu Griffin get in stride, you let Will Rogers hit him. You let Ja'Cavion Marks, Woody Marks be kind of the secondary guy who can run the ball, but also can run around in the flat and create some opportunities for the Bulldogs. Xavier Thomas had a good game. Yes, they lost. I wrote this in my article yesterday. Yes, it was a loss. And yes, 0-2 in SEC play. But things are really starting to feel positively for the Bulldogs. The defense needs a little work. I thought Jet Jefferson played really well, but other than Jet, Nathaniel Pickering had a couple sacks. But other than that, the Bulldogs defense was not what Zach Arnett was wanting at Mississippi State. They're going to face a tough test this week with Alabama. Do I think Mississippi State can hang with Alabama? Yes. I don't think they're going to beat them, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than what a lot of people, including in Las Vegas, are saying.
Well, the Las Vegas people, there are a lot of tall buildings out there. We always say that, but it's true for the reasons that you just mentioned. College football this past weekend, why we kept saying this, say Florida State was -1.5, -2.5 at Clemson. And it was all week long. I kept saying there's something we're being told, because I know, being a financial advisor, don't fight the ticker. Don't fight the tape. Okay. Market is always right. The free market always corrects things. But Clemson, you know what? They had it. I mean, I like Florida State as the better team, but I didn't like that line. And with 27 seconds left in regulation or whatever at the end of the game, Clemson misses a 28-yard field goal. God, that Clemson has now lost 2 conference games in the first 4 weeks. They're already out of the playoffs. I mean, here's a question here from somebody, just a comment they sent in to me. Zach Arnett decided to change the offense because what? He wants his own identity or what?
So I think he just really wanted to see, Kevin Barbay is known for the pro style offense. He's known for run first. That's what Kevin Barbay is for. I don't think Zach Arnett really had the ultimate say in that. I think Zach Arnett kind of let his coordinators decide, okay, let's see what works. And he changed it this week to allow the athletes to make the play. Xavier Thomas, Tulu Griffin, Will Rogers, Woody. I mean, all of these guys had great games. And I think Kevin Barbay kind of realized, hey, we've got athletes on this team. Let's just open it up. And it wasn't technically an air raid offense. There was a lot of schematical stuff that wasn't air raid stuff. Went back and watched the game yesterday. It was kind of more of just like, let's just kind of open this thing up and see what happens. Like I said, I really, there's a lot of positives. I'm going to be writing about it again today. And I really think that Will Rogers, that player-only meeting, he said, look, guys, let's wake our asses up. Let's play Mississippi State football. And I really think Will Rogers did a good job on Saturday. I was talking to Robbie Falk, and Robbie Falk said this from Gene's Pages, their 24/7 site for Mississippi State. He said the same thing on his podcast on Saturday night after the game. He said that was the best game that Will Rogers has played. Everybody talk about the interception that happened early in the fourth quarter. I'm expecting, I'm going to be careful how I word this. I'm expecting a comment from the Southeastern Conference based off the ruling that happened with that interception, because it did look like the South Carolina player never reestablished himself back in bounds. Interception, which was a momentum killer. Mississippi State was going into the end zone to take the lead. I was sitting there saying on Twitter that had Mississippi State taken the lead, I really do feel like that they would have won. But hey, everything's hindsight is 50-50. At Alabama coming to town, it's going to be a packed out, sold out Davis Wade Stadium. It's an 8:00 kickoff. You're giving the Bulldog fans literally all day, because I will speak for myself. I'm going to be out there probably starting at noon, tailgating and partaking and enjoying the junction. So you're going to give State fans all day to tailgate. It's going to be a raucous environment. State always has bad luck against Alabama on the road, but at home, State always plays Alabama pretty close at home. So it should be a really good game. So we'll see what happens. I mean, this season, and Rob, I've said this on your show about a quadrillion times, and I've said this on my own podcast and in every article I've written. This season really feels like 2007. Some crazy stuff happened in 2007. Like, I'm looking at the lines for Saturday. Kentucky's a 2.5-point favorite over Florida. I don't think Kentucky's that good. I've been watching them all season. I don't think the Wildcats are that good. Texas A&M, Arkansas, A&M's a 7-point favorite. You go down and kind of look across this. LSU's only a 3-point favorite over Ole Miss. That is a shocking thing. Now you go down to South Carolina, Tennessee. Tennessee's 12.5-point favorite. Of course, Alabama's 14.5. Some of those lines are awfully big for it not to kind of feel like a wild, mayhem, chaotic Saturday in the Southeastern Conference coming up.
Mitch, looking at these lines that you're talking about, and I'm seeing this, and I'm trying to type in some of these questions coming in to me versus YouTube. Hey, send them in on YouTube if you can, please. We will put them up there. Put your comments. But hey, Will Rogers should be a player or coach this year. I mean, his dad is a coach down in Rankin. We talk a lot with Jake Wimberly, does the afternoon drive in Jackson. Great show every day, 3 to 6. And I look at a guy like Will Rogers, though. He's a team player, and he's the son of a coach. What did you see Saturday specifically that made you think, okay, another game or two, he's breaking records again? Because the previous 2 games prior to Saturday night against South Carolina, he had the 2 lowest games in terms of output he'd had as a quarterback since middle school.
Well, Rob, I was watching on the team. Unfortunately, I wasn't in Columbia, so I couldn't exactly see every little thing. But the one thing I really noticed is the fact that he was encouraging Mike Wright. When Mike Wright came in to run quarterback on some of the goal line stances, when he scored the touchdown, Will Rogers ran out of the field and was hugging Wright, telling him good job. And Rogers really is that guy that a lot of state players are looking up to, going, okay, he's been here before. He was in the system under Mike Leach. He's put in the work. He is a Mississippi State Bulldog through and through. And really, that's just the evidence. That's all the evidence I need. And I see what he was completing, those long balls to Tulu and to Xavier Thomas, a couple other guys in that Mississippi State receiving corps. I was seeing what he was doing with that. I was like, you know what? Hey, Mississippi State has a shot this year to maybe not make a New Year's Six Bowl, obviously, with 2 losses already, but they've got a real shot to make a pretty good bowl game. They give it a shot to make one of those, Citrus Bowls or Outback Bowls. Put it together. After Alabama, the rest of the games are winnable. After Alabama, Western Michigan, at Auburn, which Auburn's got their problems, at Arkansas, which Arkansas's got their problems. Kentucky's a winnable game. At Texas A&M's a winnable game. Southern Miss at home, and then, of course, Ole Miss, which the Egg Bowl, weird things happen in the Egg Bowl. I don't care who the home team is, who the favorite is, weird things happen in the Egg Bowl.
They do, but, the rivalry games, that's one of the most – I don't think there's a lot of respect between Ole Miss and Mississippi State, but there's a lot of hate. There's a lot of respect between Auburn and Alabama. The hate is between a lot of the fans, but on the field, it's respect.
Rob, I've said this probably since I've been down here, and I've been around this rivalry and started really getting down deep into it. The Alabama-Auburn rivalry is it's a great rivalry. It's a lot of fun, but the most hated rivalry between the two is Ole Miss and Mississippi State. Those 2 programs hate each other because it's totally 2 different socioeconomical groupings. You have the rich, let's quote unquote, the snobby people at Ole Miss, and then you've got the everyday people, your farmers, your agriculture, your minorities that go to Mississippi State. The everyday average Joe go to Mississippi State. When those 2 people clash, and we see this in politics across the spectrum, when the rich people clash with the everyday people, there is a true hate for each other because Ole Miss people don't understand Mississippi State people, and Mississippi State people don't understand Ole Miss people. And it is such a fun rivalry between the 2. And I'm very, very excited to get back into the Egg Bowl and kind of get back into the toxic nature of the Egg Bowl.
Well, they have more fights on the field than any rivalry. But, we always act like today's society is so bad. My dad said in the fall of 1946, 45 or 46, Central High School and CBHS hated rivalry at Crump Stadium in Memphis. He said there was a fight at the end of the game, and the 2 guys that were in there throwing the most punches and kicking the most ass were a guy that ended up becoming the police chief of the city of Memphis, and the other one became the head Episcopal bishop of the Diocese of West Tennessee. You can't make that stuff up. Yeah, you do stupid stuff when you're 17 and 18, whatever. But hey, look, I got a lot of Ole Miss and Mississippi State friends. And again, they talk about that rivalry. And I think they make it into a class deal. But I got friends on both sides that are very wealthy, very successful. And when you've got it, let me tell you something. A college that has a strong engineering program will have a lot of wealthy alumni. Yeah. Make fun of engineers all you want, But you find me a college in this country. Let's say, you've got 13 different colleges on the campus. College of Business, College of Veterinary Medicine, College of Liberal Arts, whatever. The College of Engineering will put out per capita more gazillionaires than anything. And then you got the C students who are so scared and don't want to work for somebody else that they go out and they take chances. I'm telling you, I was watching Leave It to Beaver this morning, and Mary Ellen Rogers was having her slumber party. And Lumpy and Eddie Haskell wanted to go over there and mess with them because Wally, had all the girls, and they were going to mess him up. Today, in today's world, they'd be accused of stalking and predators and stuff like that. People used to roll houses and and do crazy. My God, society, little memo here, got to take chances, man. Risk takers. Your Steve Jobs, your guys that just rolled the dice. I don't buy the Bill Gates stuff, and he just was some geek with a big Adam's apple and thick birth control glasses working out of his basement. I don't buy that. I think that dude was created by the government, kind of like in, just they made him. But nobody gets that lucky without some help from the government or something like that. But Mitch, I digress.
Rob, I see a comment there.
Look at you.
that flash up on the screen. The Pac-12 football would destroy the SEC top teams this year.
Did you see who wrote that?
Challenge. I want to, if I can I comment on that?
Yeah. But did you see who wrote it?
I don't know who that is.
Igor Stravinsky in Palo Alto, California.
I don't even know. I'm gonna be honest with you, and this might prove the California in the South. I have no idea where Palo Alto, California is. That's not a.
Well, that's Stanford. That's where Stanford. That's the Silicon Valley.
Whoa!
So I'm just going to take a guess. Igor saw us on the web, heard us jawing about the SEC and college football, and he's probably a computer programmer. Probably lives in a 30,000 square foot house with his partner and no children. I mean, that's.
Well, that's a really interesting comment because, hey, I'm gonna be honest with you. If the Pac-12 had to play an SEC schedule, hardly any of them would be bowl eligible. Oregon, look at what Oregon did last year against Georgia. I mean, Bo Nix threw 6 interceptions against Georgia's defense last year. USC, they're not really impressive. I watched them the other night just because, I have to talk about the Heisman. I have to try to pick a Heisman winner. I watched Washington. They're okay. But again, the SEC, man, we got some athletes down here. We got some big dogs. We got some big boys down here. And we saw Auburn, and no offense to Auburn and no offense to you, Rob, because I'm like, and I'm good friends with I'm good friends with Hugh Freeze. We'll put it like that. And Auburn went out there and beat California. It should have been a lot more lopsided than it was. But Auburn, one of the worst teams in the SEC this year, went out and beat a mid-tier Pac-12 team. So I don't even know why the Pac-12 tries to even consider. I mean, they don't even have a conference anymore. Stanford is joining the ACC, which they'll finish last in every year. Then you got California. They'll probably finish last out there. I mean, the Pac-12 is really no more. When somebody brings up the Pac-12, I think of the masking and the Corona China virus and stuff like that. And the Pac-12, the top tier Pac-12 teams would not stand a chance against your Georgia, Alabamas, your LSUs, even your Ole Misses, your Mississippi States. Those teams out there would there's no way in heck that they would beat an SEC team.
Well, I don't know. Igor and his wife are like I said, sitting there drinking wine in their 30,000 square foot house in the Silicon Valley. Right? They need to be drinking bourbon. That's right. But I'll tell you this: the Pac-12 this year, I think Igor's onto something because they've got more quarterbacks. I mean, Michael Penix Jr., Caleb Williams, and you've even got DJ Uiagalelei, who he's from Concordia, California, went to Clemson, didn't work out. He's back out at Oregon State now. But I'm telling you, I think the Pac-12 this year, top to bottom, is better than the SEC. And watching Auburn's offense try to function against Texas A&M is like getting a table dance from Mildred. It's horrible. That's the worst look. That offense, for the 5th straight game, Auburn has failed to pass for 100 yards against a Power 5 opponent. As Uncle Jed would say, pitiful, pitiful, just pitiful. That is inexcusable. And I don't know what's going on at all. I do not know. But I want to know why Philip Montgomery is calling the plays and Hugh Freeze is not, and why Kent Austin, who went to Brentwood Academy and whipped MUS badly in the fall of, I think, 81, 35-7 in the playoffs when he had a great tight end named Jimmy Hockaday who went to Georgia. Kent went to Ole Miss. Hugh Freeze needs his best weapons. And if somebody at Auburn said, you can't bring Kent Austin on for whatever reason, and he's an analyst at Auburn now, if Auburn doesn't do something, their offense right now looks like some guy riding down the highway that you passed on 4 bald tires. And
the thing about that Auburn offense is that, I had to cover Tulsa when they were in the American with Memphis. Philip Montgomery's not a good offensive mind. I mean, the dude, I don't know why Coach Freeze brought him in. I think Coach Freeze probably should have taken over the OC roles just for 1 year to kind of get his system and played there. I will say the future of Auburn football is very bright. They're recruiting well.
Sure.
The future is very bright. It's just you got to get over the crest of the road in order to get to the mountaintop. And I think Auburn's on the way. I will say, as we see this season progress, it's going to be really interesting to kind of watch the middle of the SEC, because if you and I, we're following the SEC West very closely.
Yeah.
Can you without a doubt say who the third best team in the SEC West is right now?
Wow, that's tough, because if you say A&M because they beat Auburn, I mean, you can't. I don't think A&M's that good. I don't think LSU's elite.
No.
I think Arkansas. I read something that one of my writers that I really have a lot of respect for kind of went over all the teams in the conference. Arkansas's borderline schizophrenic. They've lost 2 games in a row. I mean, Arkansas is so close to being 4-0, and they could be 1-3.
And the thing about it is, like take Mississippi State, for example. After this Alabama game, look at their schedule and tell me a game where you without a doubt say, okay, Mississippi State's going to lose this game. Now, they might drop 1 or 2 here and there, but they got Western Michigan coming to Starkville on October the 7th. They got the bye week on October 14th, which I really like how the bye week, Ole Miss's bye week is the same week. I really like how the bye week plays out. And then you've got at Arkansas on the 21st, at Auburn, which I'm going to be down there on the plains for the first time ever. Looking forward to that. And then November 4th, you got Kentucky coming to town, which is a winnable game. Usually the home team in that game wins that game. And we've seen that every year for the last 20 years. Then you go to A&M, which, I mean, if your offense is clicking, you're playing good football, that's a very winnable game. And then you go Southern Miss and Ole Miss. I mean, State's got 2 losses right now. They got probably a third on Saturday, more than likely. So you're looking at a possible 9-3 season for the Bulldogs. Or I think the ceiling's 9-3. I think the floor is 6-6, 7-5, because again, they play Western Michigan, they play Southern Miss, they play Kentucky. So these games for Mississippi State coming up, yes, it's deflating to lose to South Carolina, and that was a game that Mississippi State people had kind of circled on the calendar as kind of, hey, this should be a win. But hey, the offense is clicking, the defense is going to get it. State can still finish 8-4, 9-3, and go to a really good bowl game, a Music City Bowl or something of that nature, which would be awesome, because I would love a trip to Nashville for New Year's Eve.
Well, you're optimistic, and I hope that you're right for your sake. But the offense at Mississippi State has got to finish games. They lost 37-30. I call that the Baker Bowl, because David Baker, a friend of mine, he's got 1 daughter at South Carolina and a son at Mississippi State. And the Baker Bowl is what I call it, 37-30. And Dave, you should have been there. Should have gotten on the Greyhound and taken it. It would take you a week to get there and back, but it'd be fun. But I will say this. I think the SEC this year, the lack of elite quarterback play, Mitch, is what's keeping the SEC from being the #1 league in the country. Who was it the other day? Urban Meyer said the SEC right now is probably 3rd best conference in America. you'd say Pac-12. Is he saying Big Ten? Then the SEC? Look, who in the SEC right now could go beat Florida State?
Georgia.
Okay.
I
kind of figured that, but
I would say Georgia, and if Alabama plays like they did in the second half against Ole Miss, Alabama's going to be a really difficult out for somebody else.
Well, let's go over this with Ole Miss. You've changed from zone blocking on your offensive line to man-to-man, and Jake Thornton, the coach who was there last year when they were second in the nation in rushing at Ole Miss behind one of the service academies. I don't know which one. But now Jake Thornton's at Auburn, and he inherited – I've never seen a worse situation on the offensive line than what Auburn has. And they brought in 7 or 8 guys via the portal. And as one guy said yesterday, all those guys they brought in at Auburn weren't necessarily going to make Auburn win, 9 or 10 games, but they were going to keep them from slipping to the, 2 or 3 win deal. That's I don't think people understand how disastrous the $100 million mistake was. And that was in July of 2017 when Auburn hired a guy named Stephen Leith from Iowa State as president, who subsequently hired Alan Green, nice guy, but in way over his head as athletic director, who then hired Brian Harsin, who he'd met in a hot tub 5 years earlier, as the head coach. So the end of Gus and 2 years of Harsin, Auburn basically had a closed for business sign up in the front window when it came to recruiting. Hugh Freeze is coming in there and is working his butt off. I've never seen the Auburn people so unified since 40 plus years ago. Everybody's on that same page. But I wish Hugh Freeze would quit telegraphing. I wish we didn't have to go across the country and play Cal. I mean, it sounds like Doug and Wendy Weiner on Saturday Night Live. Oh, we don't want to sit by the window. Ugh. Come on, man.
I think Hugh Freeze wanted to have a little bit more flexibility in non-conference this year and kind of before they get into the SEC play, because I don't know exactly Auburn's schedule, Rob, but I know that it's going to be difficult for, Auburn to get to bowl eligibility this year. And it's all going to come down to the games against probably Mississippi State and Ole Miss on the 21st and 28th when both Mississippi schools come to the Plains. It's going to be very, very interesting to watch Auburn kind of develop into their own. But I will say by year 2, Auburn is going to probably be one of my picks to win the SEC West, depending on what they do in the transfer portal in the offseason.
I will say this. Looking around the SEC right now, George Plaster is going to be on with us right now. Veteran broadcaster, man. I love Mitch. You got to get him. You got to get George. He was the guy, ironically, and I'm going to bring him in here in a second just to say hi to you, who took over for Jack Eaton for 1 year. That was a tough one to do. Yeah, long before you were born, young Mitchell. but anyway, he's been doing Vandy. He's up in Nashville, has an awesome podcast. He does Monday through Friday. I don't get to say Monday through Saturday, as they say down in the Deep South. Saturday. Do we have a spelling on – give me a spelling on Saturday, Mitch. Saturday.
Oh, Lord. Oh.
You're on the clock. Let's go.
I'm just trying to think that in my head because I don't even know how you would spell it. I know how you say it, but I don't know how you spell it. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Well, Mitch, that's similar to another great axiom in the South. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have a spelling on yeah?
I had a Yankee family member once ask me what yonder meant because I said something was over yonder, and I was I didn't know how to explain yonder to him. I was just like, well, it's, that way.
Well, yonder, and I agree with you. And some of the great Southern terms. And then another one, and I'm going to bring George Plaster on. As soon as he's in the green room right now, and as soon as George gives me the thumbs up, I'm bringing him into this conversation because we've got an interesting from Boris Karloff, man, in Trenton, Tennessee. And let's bring George, Boris Karloff in Trenton, Tennessee. You remember old Boris, don't you?
I can't say I do.
Remember the great actor in all the scary Halloween films? He always played them.
One, sure.
I guess that's who that is. Well, his ghost, I might add. George, Mitch Davis up here, one of our young members, been with us since we started the show. Down in New Albany, Mississippi, covers Mississippi State, Ole Miss, all things in the SIP, as he calls it. And we were trying to get some spellings on a few Southern sayings like yeah and Monday through Saturday. You ever heard people in the South say Saturday for Saturday? Can you? What
You mean like Louisville?
No, Saturday. Yeah, Louisville.
Louisville.
Nolans. Where is it? Oh, I think the Minders took him off. Are we on Radio Beijing? All right, George. But we've been having a discussion, and I'll show you another one that we had. That yes, I like this one from Shoney. Yankees are down south to remind us of all we do wrong. That's right. Mitch, let me ask you something, George, and I'm going to throw this to you first. You ever notice on every broadcast of every game on every network, certain schools have minders there, and Ohio State comes to mind. It's like I read several books before, start to finish, even the ones without pictures, about when you go visit a businessman from America goes to Beijing, goes for a morning run before the meetings, and there's 3 or 4 minders around him, just making sure he doesn't go down the wrong street and take the wrong pictures of things. It's like my wife Mildred said when she was in China. At night, they have lights, green lights on all the trees to make them look green because it's so filthy and there's so much pollution on all the trees. It looks like they dump bags of soot. That's how so they will go out and have lights on there to make it look like that everything is clean and looks really good. We're having some I don't know what we're doing with George there, but Mitch, would you agree that certain schools have minders on networks like Ohio State to make sure no matter what that their view and their narrative is put out there? Have you ever? I mean, do you notice that?
Yeah, I think that there are some schools, Ohio State, Notre Dame are the first 2 that come to mind. Michigan comes to mind. There's a lot of those in the Big Ten. Thing about the SEC is we don't really have to have that because the narrative across the Southeastern Conference controls itself. I mean, we are a self-sustaining conference. We're a self-sustaining league that doesn't need the approvals of other people and need the approval of other conferences or what people have to say about us because we already know down here in the Southeastern Conference that we're the best, and we're always going to continue to be the best. I mean, that's just how it is, especially in baseball and women's basketball and football. Men's basketball is really coming along. I mean, Alabama was a couple free throws away from advancing on to play in the Elite Eight and possibly leaving playing for a Final Four. Look at the overall success of the Southeastern Conference, and you mentioned the SIP, and look at what Ole Miss and Mississippi State are doing. Ole Miss went out and hired Chris Beard as their basketball coach, and Mississippi State has Chris Yans. Of course, we all know about the baseball history down here. So the Southeastern Conference is here to say we don't need the people controlling the narrative for us. We can control the narrative ourselves.
Yeah. George, we'll have to play this music. George is old enough to remember when someone had technical difficulties. What did we hear?
Oh, yeah.
George, we lost you there for a second. We didn't know what had happened, but
I'll tell you what happened. I got 2 phone calls. I got popular for about 2 minutes, and I think it's the cable operator.
Mm-hmm. Well, the cable man said he's going to be out there to fix it. Twixt 1 and 5 today. You got 4 hours to just sit there. That's the worst part about it. But George, what I was saying was, you ever notice when you watch the national narrative, the games on TV, the national networks? There are minders from certain schools, like Ohio State specifically. No matter where you go, there's somebody there that's going to, no matter how bad things are, Ohio State could be winless. And the SEC having 3 of the 4 teams in the college football playoff. And the narrative will be, if Ohio State hadn't lost those 10 games, they'd be in the playoffs too. That's how they would lead the story. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it gets a little frustrating. But I guess if the shoe were on the other foot and up north was as dominant as the SEC has been in recent years, that there'd probably be a frustration down here as well. By the way, I don't know who saw it. The Notre Dame Ohio State game, that's as good a college football game as I've seen in a while.
That was, and then Mitch, you talk about Ohio State, Notre Dame, but the post game reaction. And I'm going to ask Mitch. Now, this is a veteran broadcaster, a great one, George Plaster. I've always known about him. Finally met him this summer in Nashville. But I like that. Concerning the definition of yonder, yonder's Blossom Curve Market in Sylacauga, home of Jim Neighbors, golly, Gomer Powell, live bait, fresh fruits and vegetables, the best peanuts ever harvested. I love that. But, carry on, Mitch.
Yeah, so, and I'll be honest with y'all, I was too busy covering Mississippi State and South Carolina from the couch. I didn't watch any of the Ohio State game. I planned on kind of going back and watching a little bit of it, but between press conferences and writing the postgame recap and kind of looking ahead to planning my Sunday, I didn't really get a chance to watch a lot of it. I saw the postgame reactions. I didn't even know that Lou Holtz had said anything about Ohio State. And I'll be honest with y'all, I went to a festival with my wife on Saturday morning before all the games started happening. We have the Tallahatchie River Fest here in New Albany, Mississippi. So we went to that, and I didn't watch any game day. I didn't watch any SEC Nation. I took the wife. We went out to breakfast and did that. So I didn't catch anything about Ohio State. My dad called me, who my future sister-in-law, my brother's girlfriend, she is a med student at Ohio State, and he had to remind me that they were playing. I'll be honest with y'all. I try to cover college football from the Nationals perspective, but when you get involved in the SEC and you're, covering Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and, you have back-to-back games on TV, it's kind of hard to cover some of those northern schools. So I don't know anything about the game.
It really is. Mitch, I know you got to get to a meeting at the bank, but let people know how they can follow you and keep up with all the great work you're doing. And I appreciate you being on with us. This was fun.
Yeah, absolutely, George. Nice to meet you. Hopefully I'm going to reach out. I think we followed each other on Twitter. We'll have to do some collaboration. I'll look forward to working with you. But
same here, Mitch.
DavisShow.com podcast is on SoundCloud, Apple, The Mitch Davis Show. Going to be dropping my interview with Herb Vincent, the Associate Commissioner of the Southeastern Conference. Hopefully tomorrow, if all goes well. Got a couple of Mississippi State and Ole Miss pieces that hopefully I'm going to have time to do today. And then, of course, on Friday, Rob's going to be joining me. And then Blake Lovell from the 14 Southeastern is going to be joining me. We're going to start talking SEC basketball. It's here. Both Mississippi State and Ole Miss both start practice this week. So I've got a lot on my slate. I'm really excited. Working on some things, got my hand on the fire that hopefully is going to be able to work out. And if it does, we'll come on this show and kind of announce that as far as coverage for Mississippi State and Ole Miss basketball. So it should be a really good week. Looking forward to welcoming Alabama to Starkville at Davis Wade Stadium on Saturday. I'll be there. So if you're out there, say hello. Would love to see you. Love to meet you. Hell State guys, y'all have a good week.
All right, you do too. We're going to take a quick break, George. We're going to be right back. We got a lot to cover with you. Got a long way to go and a short time to get there because I know you're on a tight schedule as well. George Plaster on Sports, folks. Check out his podcast Monday through Friday, 2 to 4 p.m. It is really, really well done. It is professional. That producer you've got out there, no matter where you are, you're a great interviewer, and you listen. I think we all need to be watching your podcast to learn how to do it. You ask a question, and you let them talk. It's the way it's supposed to be done. Be right back.
Thank you.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sideline.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am R.A. Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
All right, Rob Browne back with George Plaster up in Nashville. World champions in the background there today. Which world champions are those? Braves?
Prehistoric, 1995.
Braves. Yep. I mean, what? No, all right. That picture you sent me last week of you and Jeff Francoeur and Schmaltz in the broadcast booth with David Cutcliffe was so cool. Tell that story. Can you?
Well, the deal was at SEC Media Days, David Cutcliffe is as big a Braves fan as I am, and he lives in Birmingham. And I said, let's meet up and go to a game. So we decided to go see the Yankees and the Braves in mid-August. And the deal was that when David Cutcliffe was going to Ole Miss in his first year as head coach, he was trying to recruit a young guy from Parkview High School in Atlanta named
In
Jeff
Lilburn?
Francoeur.
Lilburn, Georgia. That's
Yeah.
where Parkview is. Yeah.
That's right.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So apparently Jeff admitted to him that, look, I'm probably going to go baseball. And the friendship has stayed. And so Jeff told us come up to the booth, ahead of time. And when we did, John Smoltz, who is a huge football fan,
Yeah.
apparently, just rabid. And he peppered Cutcliffe with about 45 minutes worth of questions. It was like a press conference. And the rest of us were just sitting there going, oh my God, this is wild. But it was a lot of fun. It was kind of one of these Ferris Bueller, days off, where David and I just had a really good time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Mitch, David Cutcliffe, we've had him on the show a few times. It's just, you can't help but like the guy, and he went to Birmingham Banks High School, I believe, went to school, played football at Alabama, but he's so genuine. But I just love that picture. We have our audience, because of the interwebs, as Al Gore calls it. Do you still call it the interwebs? When the interwebs, the web started, it makes a show like what we do and what you do. You may be based in Nashville or based in Memphis like we are, but you're everywhere because of the web. And radio is cool, but a radio signal will go so far. So obviously you want to be on both. But I think about the listeners, and I like this one. Place me in there today blindfolded, and I'd know exactly where I was. Growing up in the small town South cannot be beat. I agree with that, Mr. Gaston. Absolutely agree. Of course, I wouldn't consider Memphis a small town, but I like to say, George, Memphis is the largest small town in America. You watched a lot of college football over the weekend. And by the way, Audrey and I, we watched your show the other day a couple of times. I love what you're doing on your show. And
hey, thank you.
Yeah, I really do. I'm sitting there watching it going, it inspired me to call the guy that's working with us, doing some certain things, like going back to our HD camera, using the ring lights, stuff like that. But George, what's great about the guests that you have, you know the Titans, the Nashville Sounds. You cover sports in the mid-state, but you cover all the states. What were the takeaways from what you saw out of the SEC this weekend? And then I've got a couple of other games I want to ask you about.
Yeah, I thought in the second half that Ole Miss wanted no part of what Alabama was bringing. And by the end, they might as well have just thrown up a white flag and said, I surrender. Yeah. Now, on the flip side, I have no idea what happened at halftime in Alabama's locker room, but it must have been pretty dramatic, because that was the team that Saban has been talking about all along.
Yes.
And Ole Miss was the recipient. If you look at how the first half was played, Ole Miss looked like the better team. And there was a point in it where I thought Ole Miss was going to win. And then all of a sudden, Saban must have gone absolutely nuts at halftime, because that was a different football team. That wasn't the team that slopped around against South Florida. Wow. I went to the Vandy, Kentucky game, and I'm really disappointed right now on the Vandy front. Other than a couple of wide receivers and a punter, they don't do anything very well. And they're headed, I thought a year ago that they were headed in a better direction. They had back-to-back wins against Kentucky and Florida that got people excited. But I look at them right now and I don't see it. And I don't know what's happened, but it feels like they've taken a step backwards. Trying to think about what other takes. I was surprised that Arkansas took LSU to the mat. I can't figure Arkansas out. The last 10 minutes of their game against BYU, KJ Jefferson was a turnover machine. And clearly they got some things straightened out. To go to LSU and take them to the wire, that's pretty good stuff.
Yeah. Did you think the way that game was going, have you seen the team commit so many self-inflicted penalties like Arkansas does to themselves? I mean, the week before in the fourth quarter against BYU, KJ Jefferson is tripping and falling down. When you play BYU, they're going to make you play the full 60. They're big. They got a lot of older guys, mid to late 20s on the team, especially with the virus and the 2-year mission that they do, riding around on mountain bikes, doing what they do. But I'm telling you, I just like Winthrop, Danforth, Wellington III, and Ponte Vedra, Florida. Gators are a mystery. Yeah, they are. But I want to go back to Arkansas. They got to go play A&M Saturday in Dallas. You like their chances, and they've got Alabama. They've got Ole Miss. They've got a 4-game stretch. They started it Saturday in Baton Rouge. This is supposed to be a neutral game in Dallas. They got a lot of alumni there and fans there, but they still got to go at Ole Miss and at Alabama. Where do you see Arkansas finishing this year?
I would say somewhere in the middle of the pack, and that's an easy cop-out answer. But the truth of it is, when you have to play a month's worth of this back to back to back, it may not get you in week 1, but by about week 3 and week 4, there's a cumulative effect, it seems to me, that some other conferences don't necessarily have to deal with. And I think that's, unfortunately, when you start trying to figure out who's going to do what, you got to look at their schedule and see if there are any 3-week, just Godzillas, whereby the third week you throw up your hands and say enough. Because that oftentimes, is how you figure out what's really going to go on in the SEC.
Yeah. All right. A&M Auburn. Obviously, I'm an Auburn grad. Auburn's offense, again, to describe it is like, passing a guy on the highway with 4 bald tires. He ain't going to catch it. It's just a question of when he goes off the road. Philip Montgomery is calling the plays at Auburn. Hugh Freeze is regarded as a great play caller. That's what's gotten him this far in life. Kent Austin. We all remember Kent in high school. I mean, I remember him when he played at Brentwood Academy with Jimmy Hockaday. You probably do too. Pretty damn good player. Sure. Why is he not involved in Hugh Freeze's offense at Auburn? He's an analyst down there. Kent's one of the best, most capable and respected quarterback minds, offensive minds around. And if I'm Hugh Freeze and I'm thinking Auburn hadn't thrown for more than 100 yards in 5 consecutive games against Power 5 competition, what's not to like about Kent Austin?
Well, I can't pretend to give you the answer because I don't understand it either. Now, this is probably something Auburn people don't want to hear. But the fact of the matter is, this is going to be a tough year. They don't get enough offense to get a lot done. But this whole Auburn rebuild is not about this year. If they get to a bowl game, great. But you and I both know that Hugh Freeze is going to get them a level of athlete that maybe is not there right now. Now, what's going on internally with their offense, I don't know. I guess I have enough confidence to believe that at some point Hugh Freeze will figure it out and say, wait a minute, I may need to get more in it, or I need to get Ken Austin more in it. But it's really not about this year. It's about the future that, ultimately will look a lot brighter for Auburn, because he's going to bring in a level of talent. He's proven that everywhere he's been.
Yeah. Well, I like this comment from people they send them via text or YouTube. Auburn's offense looks like elephants trying to sprint. Good description. I mean, it's completely dysfunctional. I mean, but I don't think they lack talent at running back. Receivers, they need help there. I just throw the ball to Rivaldo Fairweather every other play. I mean, the tight end, he's a stud, but I agree with you. I have not seen Auburn as united on all fronts since Pat Dye was announced as the head coach. I have not seen it like this. And now you got Georgia coming in Saturday. That's a CBS game. I don't think it's a Club and Baby Seals game, but it's the CBS 2:30 game. By the way, Auburn will play. There's a path to victory for Auburn if Georgia completely implodes. That's what it would take. But I got to ask you a question. Why weren't Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson on the CBS broadcast Saturday at 2:30, Ole Miss, Alabama?
I don't know. I was surprised by that.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, Jason McCourty and I used to do a radio show together when he was a Titan. And I'm a big Jason McCourty fan.
Oh, yeah.
But it was strange not hearing them. Look, the whole thing's gotten a little strange. NBC, showing a bunch of Big Ten, CBS showing a bunch of.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you. You're muted, George. Yeah, there you go. Okay. Yeah, I got your back. But you're saying the NBC showing a bunch of Big Ten, CBS, again, I don't know. I saw Brad Nessler and I saw Gary Danielson. We all did at SEC Media Days, which, by the way, if they're going to have one place to have it, downtown, I love Nashville. I mean, I'm from Memphis, but I do that. That downtown, I got up in the morning to go run and stuff. There was no traffic. I liked all the traffic being shut down, but the Grand Hyatt there in Nashville was awesome for Media Days. I'm just throwing that out there, in case. And by the way, he mentioned Herb Vincent, one of the genuinely nicest people. I always make a point, if I see him anywhere, to go up and say, I want to tell you how much I appreciate what you do for me personally, just getting credentials and doing things. He's an LSU guy who's been up there a while. He's there in Birmingham now, but just we need more Herb Vincents in sports media, don't we, George?
Yeah, he's one of the good ones. Gosh, he's been around the SEC almost as long as I have.
It's a good thing,
and that's scary.
It's a good thing, but
maybe it is.
Yeah, it's a good thing. But I do believe, if you're an Auburn fan, if you look at what's going on in recruiting, then you're right. What had happened, George, is that for several years, Auburn just really wasn't recruiting. But Hugh Freeze is. I just wish he was calling, George, the plays on offense. I think that would be a lot of fun. I think he's a great play caller. But I'd also like to see Kent Austin get involved. And I think if Ken Austin were involved, I think it could help. Again, I believe Philip Montgomery was there when Robert Griffin the third, fourth, and fifth won the Heisman at Baylor. But offenses have changed a lot since then. And that's my opinion, but I think they have. You gotta think about where we're going in college football. I mean, an offense has about a 3-year shelf life. You got to constantly be changing. And I go back to what Hugh Freeze said at SEC Media Days. He said, you know, one of the things I noticed when I was out of college football for a few years and out of the SEC was I got to go back and look at all the guys that have worked with me that are in coaching, and I got to change things. And maybe that's what he's doing with Philip Montgomery, but you look at the offense there. And then, again, we keep saying that. We keep saying, hey, Mississippi State, that's coaching malpractice. You know, what's going on there? Because you got Will Rogers, and I think Will Rogers is a really good quarterback. And I really do. I think he's an excellent player. But he struggled this year, but he looked like he was much more comfortable Saturday night in Columbia against South Carolina. But they lost, unfortunately, from Mississippi State 37-30. But South Carolina, man, look, Spencer Rattler, he is pushing to become the best quarterback in the SEC. Just go back a couple of years ago. When Spencer was in Oklahoma, 2 years in a row, 20 and 21, he was pulled in the Red River Shootout. He was pulled out during those games. And yonder he is. There's George Plaster. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
We lost you there.
Call, I don't really know what to do when it happens, and it looks like I go away on you, which is probably a good thing.
Well, no. Tell you what we'll do. We'll start using your laptop. Just use email next time. That way, it'll just come in directly through your through your computer. I'll just email you the link. That'll work?
Sure.
Because no, you're great stuff. But what I was just saying about just look around the conference, you know, and you look. I want to ask you about Kentucky and Vanderbilt. You watched Vanderbilt play, and my friend Bill James, who's a member of our Club 250, his son Christian James is a defensive tackle. I know they need him. He's been out injured these first few games, but they need all hands on deck. Clark Lee is not happy with a 5-7 record like they had last year, but Kentucky came in and just demolished them Saturday. You were at the game. What do you see as a path to 5 wins this year? I mean, that which last year he wanted more. Do you see them getting to 5 this year, or certainly bowl eligibility would be incredible?
No.
Yeah,
no.
I don't either.
The whole bowl eligibility thing went up in smoke at UNLV, and some of the dumbest football that I have seen in a while.
Me too.
And it started in the second quarter. They had jumped out to a really good 17-0 lead, and then through a series of mental gaffes, UNLV ended up leading at halftime 20-17.
Yeah.
UNLV got up by a couple of touchdowns. Vandy tied them very late, had a chance to win the game, missed a field goal, and then UNLV is willing to settle for going to overtime. A Vandy player takes a timeout. UNLV on their sideline said, well, screw it. If they're going to do that, we're going to go deep. That's the only thing that could have won the game in regulation. Anyway, without going into all the morbid details, Vandy totally screwed up, totally disorganized in the UNLV game. Then they come back home against Kentucky, and they've got some people hurt on defense. And they don't have enough depth at this point to be able to overcome that kind of thing. I don't know how good Kentucky is. It's hard to tell. When I look at Vandy right now, number one, the whole concept that they've gotten better athletically in a lot of positions is a myth. Their offensive line sucks. They can't run against anybody. They're not very good at pass blocking. A.J. Swan has not been anywhere near as good as they need him to be. But in fairness, he's kind of getting the crap kicked out of him. They're not getting to 5 wins. I'm trying to figure out where a third one would come from, given that all of their games from here on in are SEC. This feels like they've taken a pretty significant step back.
Yeah, I mean, and that's Red West in Las Vegas Vanderbilt needs to open up the bank vault, and TCB, I love it, taking care of business. You're part of it, with NIL. They have a $10.6 billion endowment. And I guess what that does is provide for chairmanships and professorships and stuff like that. But that ain't going to do anything for your football program. But they're spending over $700 million. You and I both know there's a lot of money in Nashville. There's a lot of money in Memphis. I'll tell you what, in Memphis, most of the really, really wealthy people have never been asked to invest in the University of Memphis. But they are now with Dr. Bill Hardgrave. I mean, former dean of the College of Business at Auburn. Is Vanderbilt, is the president up there? And you know the lay of the landscape there in Nashville. Are they going out and knocking on doors and saying, we need your money, we need NIL, we need everything we can do going in our favor? Are they serious? Are they committed to winning at all costs?
I wouldn't go that far. I would say that this chancellor is more committed than the last one, which isn't saying a damn thing. Nick Zeppos couldn't have cared he couldn't have cared less about athletics than he did.
Yeah.
Gordon Gee was the one behind him. I'll always contend that Gordon Gee did care. And before him was Joe Wyatt, who didn't know if a football was pumped or stuffed. So they've had a lot of different variables at the top. This guy appears more committed because he's turned over some money to athletics. But as you know, they are so far behind the 8 ball compared to other schools in the league that it feels like a deck chair off the Queen Mary.
Yeah. All right, George, bringing in Franz Beard, GatorBaitMedia.com, and Franz, absolutely the Iron Duke is what Buddy Martin calls him. They're down there at GatorBaitMedia.com in Gainesville. Franz I call him and Frank Duffy, Mr. LSU Tiger, another one of our team members, the two most interesting men in the world. To hell with the Dos Equis guy because I don't see him anymore. But when I think about it, George, Franz, George Plaster on sports up in Nashville, covers Vanderbilt, the SEC.
How you doing?
Does a great daily podcast, 2 to 4 p.m. Absolute pro. And I've always known who he is. Met him at Media Days in Nashville along with Chris Lee of the Southeastern 14 and Rivals Vandy. And I'm like, wow, I hit the jackpot. It was like I was at a casino. Those people with a big old ass that have to sit on 2 seats and they keep spinning the thing days and days and days at a time. I hit the jackpot with these guys. But, Franz, we're talking about the Vandy situation. And, George, stay on with us as long as you can. I know you got it scheduled, but I want to get your take, Franz, because you understand the dynamics of money and fundraising and investing in your program. Vandy, outside of Texas A&M, well, Texas has $42 billion. And as Franz always says, A&M has about $19 billion in the endowment, but only God and the Longhorns have more money than Texas A&M. That's the kind of great quotable stuff you get out of Franz Beard. But Franz, looking at it from Florida's perspective, what do you think about Vanderbilt? George says, no, I don't see them committed to winning at all costs, but you think they ever will?
No, I don't. And the thing about it is they could use the Duke model. And you look at what's happened at Duke. Duke renovated Wallace Wade Stadium, was a great place to have a track meet. But the stadium itself had got a rundown. And you look at what they've done to the stadium now. It's 40,000 seats. It's very, very good-looking stadium. They put the money in football. Now they're winning in football. They've been winning in all the other sports because they're willing to do it. And Vanderbilt doesn't have higher academic standards than Duke University. And quite frankly, Florida is now the -- public institution in the country. It is easier to get into Harvard University than it is to get into the University of Florida. They send out letters that say if your GPA isn't weighted well above 4.0 and you don't have at least 1,400 on your SAT, don't even think about applying. That's how.
Wow, that's impressive.
And we have the academics here, but we have the commitment to make the sports good. And here's the thing that people don't seem to realize, and I think Vanderbilt needs to understand this. You're not going to win with Boy Scouts. Vanderbilt thinks that we can get 22 Boy Scouts. You win with 2 Boy Scouts and 20 psychopaths. That's how you win in college football. And what you do is you take those 20 psychopaths and you hope that in 4 years you have molded them into, instead of psychopaths, just people who might grow up to be urban terrorists or something like that if they don't make it into football. But here's the thing is you have to be able to commit to these people and say, we're going to bring you here. We're going to do this. Notre Dame has done that and kept winning in spite of it. And you got to commit to bring these guys in. We know that they don't fit the academic or social profile here. They're not going to be, thanks to some NIL money, some of them are going to arrive in a BMW, et cetera, like that.
Yeah.
But here are guys that are going to be walking across campus while they're across the dorm hall. Buddies are sitting there and they've got BMW convertibles and a daddy that spends lots of money on them because what does it cost to go to Vanderbilt now? $80,000, $90,000 a year.
Is that about right, George? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big old chunk of change.
God.
So you've got to commit to bring these guys in and say, okay, we know you're not going to fit the profile, but what we're going to do is we're going to do our best to make it so that in 4 years, when you leave here, you fit the profile. What was it? Remember that movie, Scent of a Woman and Al Pacino? A beard man. What is a beard man? Well, we kind of have that idea, in schools that are academically elite, like Vanderbilt. Florida's one now. A Florida man. What is a Florida man? I'm a Florida guy. I don't fit that profile at all. I'm not a Democrat for one thing. And we seem to be intent on churning out new Democrats here. I think they do the same thing up at Vanderbilt. They have that same idea that they can do it. But here's the thing: Vanderbilt. I've always felt that Vanderbilt could do it. But it's kind of like Ole Miss in one respect. Ole Miss was a powerhouse until they went to 2-platoon football. When they went to 2-platoon football, that was the end of Johnny Vaught's reign. You go from 47 until 1962. Ole Miss had the best record in all of college football. Now, Ole Miss and Oklahoma were the 2 teams with the best record. Same thing with Georgia Tech. And what happens is all of a sudden you go 2-platoon football and it diluted the pool. All of a sudden, now that everybody can get players and you go 2-platoon, it changes dynamics.
Yeah, so, George, along the line of what Franz just said, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Franz, but George, along the line of what he's saying, in the late 60s, they caught Alabama. Remember, they had 3 straight 6-5 seasons, and then Emory Ballard, Darrell Royal, Paul W. Bryant got together and did the wishbone. I mean, that saved Alabama football in the 70s. But what about what Franz said, your response to that?
Oh, I mean, look, everything he's put out there is true. And it's frustrating as an alum of the school who cares about sports.
Yeah.
And, this has been over the years, kind of in the 30 years that I've been a sports talk show host, one of the things that, comes up a lot. And people here are probably sick of hearing me talk about it. The issue that they've got now is that in this big city that Nashville has become, they haven't got much of a fan base. Most of their SEC games at home are.
Well, George, come back with us. Let's do this. This will be an opportunity for us to take a quick commercial break. George, Yeah, George, hold that thought there for a second. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to be right back because I want to hear what you say because this is a very, very good discussion, getting a lot of people that have comments and questions for y'all. George Plaster on Sports, Franz Beard, GatorBaitMedia.com, the Iron Duke. We'll be right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Hi, Rob Browne back here with Franz Beard, GatorBaitMedia.com, and George Plaster up in Nashville, Plaster on Sports. And George is having, I don't know, it's almost like Franz watching a national sports show or whatever, and you say something derogatory about Ohio State, and the minders suddenly pull your plug or whatever. It's like, we can't hear it anymore, whatever. But we did have that discussion earlier. But here comes George again in just a moment. But I think that he's been having. Here we go, George. Yeah, let's bring you back on here. We came out of that break a little bit fast. You were making some great points before the break. Go ahead and run through the finish line.
Well, what I was getting at is that no matter how much money you spend, one of the issues that gets ignored here is they don't have a fan base. Their fan base is as small today as I've ever seen it. It's probably no more than 6,000 to 8,000 who really, really care. And, you know, when you're going up against the kind of people that they're going up against, you know, in the SEC, that's tough. Now, have they caused a lot of this? Oh, of course they have. You know, when you spend 50 years not caring, eventually people are going to say, well, if you don't care, why should I care?
Yeah, well, look at George. That's a powerful thing. Look what happened to Auburn recruiting in just 2 years under Brian Harsin, the damage he did to the Auburn football program. I mean, that was just 2 years. That's not 50, that's 2. I've never heard it put like what you just said, and you're an alumnus of the school, as was my grandfather and his brother Cadwallader. They all went to law school after VMI at Vanderbilt, affiliated with Sigma Nu chapter up there. My cousin Helen. I mean, so many people in our family, Vanderbilt people, and they got more money than anybody except A&M in Texas. If they ever decide to get serious, I like what Franz said, the Duke model. Do you hear much talk about the Duke model in Nashville?
No, it's a little bit early to see where this Duke thing is going. This is a really good football team they've got. But as you guys know, is this sustainable for 4 to 5, 6 years? Cutcliffe did a much better job for about an 8-year period than anybody gave him credit for.
Yeah.
Then it sunk for a couple of years. He's gone, Elko's in. Look, I root for him. You know, when they went after Clemson a few weeks ago, not only was I shocked, but I loved it. Good for them.
Yeah.
Well, you know, guys, I think that, you know, there's a standard joke around the SEC, which is, you know, every time somebody says, well, why don't we kick Vanderbilt out?
Well, Franz, they're an original member of the SEC, so basically they've got a lifetime pass.
And the Yeah, but here's the comment that always comes back every time they say that. Somebody always chimes in with, "Yeah, but everybody's got to have somebody you want to play for homecoming," and that's kind of been the mentality around here. There was a time, people don't realize Vanderbilt from 1915 to about 1930 under Dan McGugan, they won national championships. They were probably the original powerhouse in the South, ahead of Alabama. Alabama finally got the message and did it, but our main administration office at the University of Florida is named after one of the great coaches in Vanderbilt history, John Tigert Hall at Florida. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame. But they had, Vanderbilt's like Ole Miss in that as long as they were playing single platoon football, Vanderbilt could be good because they could find 18, 20 players, which is all you need when you're playing one platoon football. They could find 18, 20, 22 players. The problem is when you go to two platoon football, Ole Miss, for example, they didn't have enough good players in the state of Mississippi to play two platoon football. Because now all of a sudden, instead of just 22 players, you're really talking 44 because you got to have the backups. So when it's single platoon, you only need 22 good players. And it killed Vanderbilt. And you're right. I'm listening to the part about Vanderbilt people. I don't see a lot of them caring. I have a former lawyer of mine who did his undergrad at Vanderbilt. And he cares far more about the University of Kentucky because he lives in Lexington than he ever will about Vanderbilt. You ask him about Vanderbilt football and he's, who did we lose to at homecoming this year? And that's the attitude that's prevailed. I think it could change. I think it should change. I think what Vanderbilt needs to do is start by leveling that stadium they have. Do what they did at Texas A&M. They just came in there and said, okay, we're going to take half the stadium. We're going to level it. We're going to build something brand new here. And they got the money to do it and do something really nice. Make it so that a kid who's in Nashville, who's a really good football player that everybody in the SEC is after, make it so that kid says, why should I leave home? They got everything I need right here. And they need to do that.
George, is there an effort? Look, they've done it in baseball. Tim Corbin's got a world-class, they are an elite baseball program. If they were in football, they'd be up there with Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State in the last 5 years. That's how they would be regarded. And I know it takes more guys in football than it does in basketball, but again, the boosters up there at Nashville at Vanderbilt. And this is just for the whole. This isn't the black and gold hour, but I just saying for all colleges out there, if money alone can't do it. Because in this millennium, if you think about it, you know how many double-digit win seasons A&M has with all their money and resources? They have won an 11-2 season in 2012 when Johnny Football came on the scene. George, that's all I'm saying is, but what if Vanderbilt got him a rock star quarterback, the Pied Piper that could pull all these kids in the mid-state to Nashville? What would happen then?
Well, this was one of the things I screamed and yelled about with Derek Mason's staff. They didn't do any recruiting in this area. They acted like this was communist China. And I will give Clark Lee this. They have started to get some kids in this local area. Yeah. One in particular, a kid named London Humphreys, who is starting to really make some things happen. But here's the big problem. Okay, any school's fan base that goes through 50 years, number one, of pretty consistent losing, but also the belief that your administration not only is a help but a hindrance,
Yeah.
I don't care what school it is. If you go through 50 years of this, your fan base will say, screw it.
Yeah.
The same thing would go on at Florida. It would go on at Alabama. It would go on anywhere. I don't blame the fans for the lack of interest. I mean, this is sort of a up to Vandy to show people that they care. Now, my worry is it too late? You know, has the damage been done over this half century? You know, I look around because there are a lot of new people coming into this city. And if I were them, I think that's what I'd be focused on, is trying to get a group that doesn't have preconceived notions to try to get them involved in your program. And maybe they're doing that. Look, I don't pretend to know the inner workings of their athletic department right now. But that's what I would be doing.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that, George, I know, I mean, you've stayed on long with us, and I appreciate it, but you brought up some great points. And you and Chris Lee both have such a good feel for what is going on in Nashville. But we know there's a lot of money in Houston. We know there's a lot of money in Dallas, Fort Worth, and Austin. There's a lot of money in Memphis. You know, one thing I found out in doing some fundraising in this for Auburn and the campaign for Auburn over the years, 95 to 98% of the people that we called thousands, they thought, oh, so-and-so, you know, this guy or that guy is going to pay for everything. Far from it. That's not the truth. In fact, those people get kind of PO'd and go, you know, I mean, I'll do my part, but we need more people to participate. And if you've just got a small cabal of people that you're asking to help you financially, you're going to alienate a lot of other people who all you got to do is ask. I know as a financial advisor, you know, when people say, how much of my money do you want to manage? I say, well, if you went to the doctor for a physical, you wouldn't just say, examine me from the knees down, would you? You know, the more I know about you, the more I can help you. And I think Vanderbilt, Florida, Franz said Florida has about $2 billion in cash right now. Two, as Carl Sagan would say, billion. Carl Sagan, the great astronomer, which y'all all remember him. But I just think about cash flow, tuition costs. And there's so much money, but money alone doesn't solve it. In fact, what I've seen in my 32 plus years is blood's thicker than water, but money's thicker than blood. And that's just how it is. George, I know you've got a big day ahead of you. Let people know how they can follow you on your show. And you got to get Franz on there sometime. You want a cool guest. Not only does he know Gators, but he knows college sports around the country. But he's a gifted writer. Had a great conversation with Brendan the other day, and he goes, I love Franz beard. I said it, and Buddy calls him the Iron Duke, but I love having him on the show because it's almost like having Victor Davis Hanson, but he's a lot faster and more witty and quicker than Victor Davis at the Hoover think tank out there in California. But
you just blundered like nobody ever blundered by putting my name on the same plane with Victor Davis Hanson. I may be smart, but Victor Davis Hanson is an absolute. He may be the smartest man in the entire world.
He is. But I'm telling you, when it comes to sports and putting all this complex minutia in the vernacular, you have a gift. I'm just telling you, and I mean it, George. You ought to get him on. But George, I love your show, and I'm gonna have it on today. I've got a meeting. I love to give meeting times with people, like airline times. I'm meeting people today at 12:07 p.m. Central. And
nice. I like it. Hey, enjoyed meeting you, and go Gators.
Hey, thanks, George, and we need it because if we can get Kentucky up there, and Lord knows, I wish these people would just understand. Forget. You're not a football school. Just go play basketball. Everybody can deal with you. But now they're trying to play football and just upsetting the whole apple cart in the SEC, and I don't like it. I like it better when Florida wins and Auburn and Alabama and LSU, the schools that are supposed to win, When we win, everything is right. When everybody else is winning, it's not good. So,
Hey, I'll pass that on to my Kentucky buddies.
all right, thanks a bunch.
Good to meet you.
Good to meet you too.
George, let them know how they can tune in to you, and we'll let you go.
Rob, it's pretty simple. The easiest way is to go on my Twitter account, George Plaster TN, and the pinned tweet at the beginning of it is the easy way. But you can go Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. I'd love to tell you I know what all of those mean. I don't. But we archive the show afterwards, so you can go Apple Podcast or Spotify, and I don't know what the hell any of those mean, but it sounded good.
Yeah. Well, it's great stuff as always, man. Thank you. Look forward to having you all next week. Franz, hang tight. We're going to take another quick commercial break. In just a few minutes, Wess Moore, ESPN 103.7 The Buzz. We'll check in from Little Rock, talking about the Razorbacks, the Western Front. Also going to get into, I want to talk some Texas. I'm talking some Oklahoma. Like we said last year, Brent Venables did not get a football lobotomy at the drive-thru on the way from Clemson back to Oklahoma. Remember last year, Boomer Sooner, of their last 5 losses, they lost 4 games in their last 5 by 3 points, 4 3-point losses. Dylan Gabriel ain't a bad quarterback. We're going to be right back. We're going to get into that a lot more. Appreciate everybody listening, everybody watching, and mash on that YouTube button. We're starting to emphasize that. We had Brendan Martin on the show Friday, and like Franz, they know the power of the YouTube. Back in a sec.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am R.A. Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
Rob Browne back here with you. And Franz, great discussion, back and forth, banter with George Plaster. And the Gators, 22-7 Saturday. What'd you think?
Well, it was dull. It was boring, but it was a win. And, last time I checked, they don't have a category for blowouts. It says W, it says L. It doesn't say blowout wins. It doesn't say, you don't have a category UL ugly win. UW ugly wins or PL pretty losses. They don't have that. It was ugly. But here's the thing. Florida only gave up 210 yards and 7 points. The Gators are now the 5th ranked defensive team in the country. And let's just say that this is a kind of a better than average day, and they convert 3 of those field goals become touchdowns. All of a sudden, you're talking about a 34-35-7 ball game. Maybe they get all 5 touchdowns. It's 42-7. And everybody's saying, boy, that Florida team has got it going. But everybody's looking at that and saying, oh, okay. Well, it was Charlotte. It was a letdown, but it came after an emotional high. And they still dominated the game and won it. That's the only important thing to take from it. They dominated a game and they won it.
Yeah. Well, and like you say, there's no categories in blowouts. Wess Moore is on with us right now, ESPN 103.7 The Buzz in the capital city in the natural state, Little Rock. Love having him on here. And I didn't know this until he mentioned this to me yesterday, Franz. Wess calls the UCA, University of Central Arkansas, games on ESPN Plus on the weekends, footballs. Of course, I know about UCA because Harold Horton, my friend Tim's dad, coached there, won 38 straight games, 3 national championships in his 8-year run there. But Wess, already got something coming in here from Jerry in Joplin, Missouri. Razorbacks are so close. And was getting the play-by-play from my friend Chris Saxon down there to watch his nephew. He drove over from Fairhope Saturday. He said, man, got to talk to Patrick briefly, but, that 17.5-point line, we talked about it on the round table Saturday. I was all over the Hogs. I thought that game would be like within a touchdown. There's no way the Hogs were going to go down there and just be, a sacrificial lamb. They fought their asses off. They got some mistakes they got to work on, but Wes, you're 6'4", 198 pounds of muscle with 3.8% body fat from Jacksonville, Texas. You've forgotten more than I know. Let's get your takeaways.
Better. I thought they played better offensively. The offensive line is the biggest surprise for me. They weren't able to run the ball effectively, the first 3 weeks. It was a struggle. And all of a sudden, they were able to run the ball against LSU. That was surprising to me because LSU's got a good front seven. And Arkansas ran the ball consistently. One of the things they did, they put in some RPOs. They had KJ Jefferson running the ball, and I think that helps Rashad Dubinion, and that opened up some holes for him. And then that opened up the passing game. They did a short passing game all night long against LSU. And so they moved the ball and scored a lot of points. Basically, it comes down to a couple trips in the red zone. And Arkansas did not convert, and LSU did. And that's why LSU won the game. I go back to that first quarter when Arkansas is playing well. They're moving the ball. And then they were on the 1-yard line and couldn't score. They got to the 9-yard line, couldn't score. They got to the 10-yard line, couldn't score a touchdown. They kicked field goals. So those 9 points, I'm watching the Cowboys yesterday. It's the same thing. You get in the red zone, you got to score a touchdown, especially against an offense as good as LSU's. And, the game of football, you're playing, however many snaps, 150 plays, and you can look back at, to me, 2 plays, 3 plays in the red zone, and KJ Jefferson has Armstrong open and just throws it over his head. Yeah. He threw it to Haz on the 1-yard line, but it was a high throw, and Haz has to jump up there and catch it, and he's kind of exposed, gets hit, and gets knocked backwards at the inch line. If KJ throws just a good pass where he catches it and his feet are on the ground, he turns his shoulders and he falls into the end zone when the guy hits him. There was a RPO where I think KJ had the wrong read. He tossed it to Haz, a little tight end, underneath shovel pass, but that linebacker stayed home. KJ should have kept it and basically ran the option with Dubinion to the outside. Those 3 plays, if you convert on one of them, that's the difference in the ball game.
Well, here's a question I got to ask you. And like what Scott in Little Rock says, KJ throws one of the prettiest passes in college football, and he does. And I look at Arkansas, and I think, how much better would they be if Rocket Sanders was playing? And looking at the way the offensive line is playing, what do you think? I mean, what's your takeaway?
Well, where Rocket would have helped is a second running back. A.J. Green struggled in this game. I think he had 3 carries, no yards, and then he got hurt. We haven't heard, and I don't know what the extent of his injury is, but he was holding his shoulder, kind of collarbone area, so that kind of worried me. Then they had to go to Dominique Johnson, and this guy's gone through 2 ACL surgeries on the same knee, and he obviously has lost a step and is not as effective as he was. So that's where it would have helped, because Rashad Dubinion was awesome, guys. He ran the ball better than I've seen him run ever, and he did that against LSU. So Rocket would have provided depth, and he would have had been that second running back once A.J. Green got hurt. And hopefully, Rocket's back for A&M, and they'll have Rocket and Dubinion against the Aggies this Saturday.
Franz?
Well, I did not get to see that game live, but I did get to see the replay of it, and I look at that as an opportunity lost. I think it's the only way to look at it. Is Arkansas, I felt, should have won the football game, but things happen in the game, that you can't explain. Letting Neighbors and Thomas get open as they did. It surprised me that the defense had the breakdowns it did, particularly on a day when I think that KJ was trying to almost willed his team to win. And as you said, minus weapons that he needed, but he still almost willed his team to win. And I think the defense let him down because Neighbors and Thomas should not have been that open all day.
To me, the biggest swing of the game happened right before half. Arkansas scores a touchdown. Pittman's fired up on the sideline. The team's got the momentum. It's 45 seconds to go into the half, and I think even Herb Street said, Arkansas is going to take a 10-point lead into the, to the locker room, and LSU scored in 2 plays. I think it was 2 or 3 plays, big plays,
big ones, yeah.
And you're just like, what's going on? Was it the prevent defense and it prevented you from stopping them, or what was it? But you're right, there was a breakdown. I'm looking for the safety. Where's the safety help on that 55-yard touchdown? He's in the slot one-on-one, and there was nobody there. And the disappointing thing was the defense played so well up to that point, and just really it kind of frustrated LSU and Daniels. And then in 3 plays, the whole game changed. And I think that gave LSU not only the momentum, but a little confidence going to the locker room that, okay, here we go. We got it now. This is who we are. Maybe LSU was sleepwalking. I don't know. What
I don't think so. I really don't think so. I think Arkansas was as good as LSU. But, it's kind of like, Wes, I'll throw a little analogy at you. Years ago, Dick Vitale's doing a college basketball game. This is back when Tim Duncan was at Wake Forest. And he makes a comment. He says, 2 minutes and 3 seconds to go in the game. Wake Forest up by 10. They believe they're going to win. Over in the Carolina huddle is Dean Smith. There's 2 minutes, 3 seconds to go. They're down 10, but they know they're going to win. And Wes, I think that's kind of what happened with LSU. LSU knew it was going to win. Arkansas thought it could win, but LSU knew it was going to win. And there's a difference there. There's a mentality there that you got to get to. And I think that's what Sam's trying to build, is that mentality where you get to a game like this and you know you're going to win it. You don't think you can. You don't believe, well, if we do this and we do that, we'll win it. But we are going to win, period. Even if we play bad. Florida had a game like that this week where they played bad and they still won. And you're going to have games like that, but you got to be able to know.
Can you give me some coffee and creamer, please?
You got to have that mentality that we're going to win no matter what.
Yeah, at the end of the game, Arkansas tied it up, and I'm just like, how can they get a stop? How can Arkansas? Is it a turnover? Can they make them punt? But you're exactly right. LSU knew they were getting the ball back with 2 minutes left or 5 minutes left. They were going to drive down and win this game.
Yeah, and Wes? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to walk over you. I lost you for a second. Wes, when I was watching the Arkansas LSU game with a bunch of friends and fans of different schools, and there's always the talk that if Arkansas doesn't get above 500, it may be time to just say, Sam, we appreciate you stabilizing the program after the Chad Morris disaster, but we feel like this is as far as you can take us. We want to get someone to take us to that next level. That's silly. I mean, I cannot. But I mean, you hear that kind of talk. Sam Pittman, he's likable, but it's not like people like him. At least I don't, because he's a cool guy. I also think he's a hell of a coach, and I think he's building something really special at Arkansas. What do you say to people? And I'm sure you get the calls on there. We hear them. I get comments that some of them I can't even put on the, screen. But I think that guy is a program builder, and also think he's building a hell of a staff, and also think he's going to have Arkansas consistently recruiting in the top 15. They don't lack for money. They don't lack for facilities. They damn sure don't lack for fan support. So what's your take on all that?
Well, we already know he can build a program. He started from scratch. Chad Morris didn't win an SEC game for 2 years, and it was as low as I've seen it. And so Pittman's turned it around, and so I understand he's built it. Now what can he do? Can he take the next step? And I don't know if we know that. The jury's still out.
Yeah.
But for the ones that are saying now is the time to let him go, I think that's nonsense.
Yeah.
First of all, we saw improvement out of this team last week. They played, they ran the ball better. Offensively, they looked the best they've looked this season. And, they did that in Death Valley against one of the top teams in the country. I still think LSU wins the SEC West. I'm not putting it past them to beat Georgia in the SEC championship game. I think they had a bad half against Florida, who is very good too. They're a top 5 team, top 7 team, whatever you want to put. They just went and played toe to toe with LSU in Death Valley. They got better. They're improving. Let's see what happens against A&M. Let's see what happens in Tuscaloosa. I mean, if you can do that against LSU, what can you do in Alabama? Alabama's offense is struggling. What can you do?
Yeah.
So I just say, hold on. Let's see what happens. I know people don't like to be patient, but you got to be patient with this team. Yeah, and the fact that they have a new offensive coordinator and a new defensive coordinator, they're learning on the fly, and they better get better week after week.
Well, you played football, Wes, all your life until you didn't. So it takes about a year and a half to learn a new defensive system. That's a fact. They've got 4 games under their belt. Earl in Texarkana, Arkansas side. You know what Texarkana is famous for, guys? The Falcon Monster. Remember the legend of Boggy Creek? That was a movie made in the mid-'70s with a home camera. Earl in Texarkana, Arkansas says, Hogs will beat A&M by 16 this Saturday. It's hard to keep a good hog pinned up. Take up a career as a writer there, Earl in Texarkana. But, Wes, your thoughts about that? Forget what A&M did to Auburn. I mean, that's like racing a man with no legs right now. Auburn's offense is so bad. They've got running backs. They've got some players, but the quarterback is scared. They had 52 yards passing against A&M. A&M's not a world beater. Auburn will be better eventually, I think. But I think the Hogs go in there and get her done Saturday in Dallas. What do you think? I'll start with you, Wes, and then to you. Yeah.
I'm not going to pick Arkansas to win by 16 because
Earl did.
Petrino's on that. I know. Bobby Petrino's on that other side, and he's got to be licking his chops after what he saw LSU do and carve up that Arkansas secondary.
Yeah.
That they were making a killing, putting their wide receiver in the slot and running it against some of the safeties for Arkansas. So unless Arkansas makes some changes this week, A&M's going to be able to throw the ball, and they're going to score some points. I'm expecting an old-fashioned shootout in Arlington, a lot of points scored. But I'll tell you this, after we're talking with the players in the preseason, we had a radio event. The players, we had 4 different players come, and I asked them, and I said, look, don't tell me the next game, the first game. I said, which game do you have circled on your schedule? And they all pointed out A&M. Because of what happened last year. They blew it. They knew they blew that game. They should have won that game. And it just sits with them poorly. And if there's, you got a little hangover after a disappointing loss against LSU, this A&M game is going to help them get over that and focus and be ready to play. I do think Arkansas beats A&M. I think the wrong team is favored. See, Vegas has A&M favored by 6.5. I think Arkansas should be favored by 6.5. I think they win this game by about a touchdown.
Franz?
Well, I think Arkansas should win this ball game, but I will say this: if A&M starts Max Johnson. I don't know what the extent of the injury is with Connor Wegman, but if they start Max Johnson, it's going to be a lot harder. I don't know what it is about this guy that people keep downplaying him, whatever like that. The guy can flat out fling it. Those 2 touchdown passes he threw Saturday were just absolute darts. And I don't know what it is about him, but he came to Aggie land and they were in love with Haynes King, and then they were in love with Wegman. And Max is always like the third guy, and he always is productive. He was the same thing at LSU. They make him the quarterback, and all of a sudden LSU starts winning ball games in 2020, and they win them in 2021, and yet they run him off. Doesn't make sense to me. He's going to be hard to stop. But I will say this: Arkansas's wide receivers can beat those corners at Aggie Land all day. The key is this: can you protect KJ? If you protect KJ, you win the ball game.
Wes, like that.
Yeah, I think that offensive line took a huge step forward, and confidence-wise, they should be a confident group. And I'll tell you this, too. It's the craziest thing, but
WhatsApp audio.
The offensive line had 3 guys battling hand injuries, and they're starting to get a little healthier. It's crazy that 3 different ones had hand injuries. Can you imagine being an offensive lineman with your hands hurting? Well, I think they're playing a little better with their hands getting healthier. I think this offensive line took a step forward, and I think you're just going to see better and better things from the offensive line here on out.
Yeah, and from what you know, talking about injuries, and again, there's only so much you can glean from what you see, what you hear, whatever. Defensively, are you impressed with what Travis Williams, Marcus Woodson, I just know him from Auburn. I got to know him when he was on the staff there. He is an elite recruiter and even better player development guy. And if your pass rush is good, people always talk about the secondary struggling. I mean, if your defensive line isn't good, your secondary is going to be struggling for sure. But in the old days, historically, if you look at a tackle chart, defensive linemen, they might have 35, 38 tackles a season. Used to be 75 maybe. Your linebackers should lead your team in tackles, and then your secondary. If your free safety is leading the team in tackles, you're probably looking at a 3-9 or 2-10 record. Fair to say, Wes?
Yeah, no doubt. And I thought, and it's tough to judge this LSU game because I do think LSU has one of the best offenses in the country. And they got a great quarterback. I mean, guys experienced. And look at those wide receivers that they have. Their offensive line, they're all back. That's a very good offense. So I try to rein in my disappointment from the Razorback defense because what I saw in the second half last Saturday was what I saw last year. And it was guys running wide open. It was just easy, throws and catches. So that was the disappointing thing because you got a new defensive coordinator, you got new secondary coach, you got new players. I mean, the secondary is a lot of new guys, and I saw the same old. So I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt that this was a very good offense and that this defense is better. But we're going to, you know what? They got their test, a tough test on Saturday against A&M. So they have to do better than what they did in the second half against LSU.
Yeah, the heartbreaker, I mean, watching it with a bunch of my Hog friends Saturday night, to watch that and then to watch the way Notre Dame lost at the end and then have to listen to Ryan Day start going after Lou Holtz, boy, that really showed he's a tough guy. I mean, that was tough to watch. But Wes, the Hogs, they're 2-2 right now. This is a brutal stretch. The game is in Dallas at Jerry's World. there are a ton of Hog fans and alumni that live in the Metroplex. I hate to say it, but that's what they call it. But it's also so easy to get there. All the Hog fans, y'all know what I'm talking about on TV. They'll say, that's a long trip from Fayetteville. It's really not. But number two, not all the Arkansas fans live in Fayetteville. I live in Memphis. They're in Memphis. They're all over Arkansas, but they're all over the place. How evenly divided is that crowd there, Wes, at Jerry's World when Arkansas and A&M play? Because I remember that game last year. That was a heartbreaking, crushing loss for the Razorbacks. And you're right. They probably have it circled, and it's going to be a big one. But what about that crowd Saturday?
It's usually, it depends on which fan base is a little bit more excited going into that game. Some years it's Arkansas 55% to A&M 45%. And I've seen it the other way. And I've seen it where it's been pretty close 50-50. So I got to think it's going to be pretty close to 50-50. I still think the Razorback fans are excited about this team and this game. It'll be the next to last time it's ever played at Jerry Stadium. The contract runs out after next year, and A&M has made it clear they do not want to continue this contract. They want it to be a home and home. So that this will be it. 2 more times at AT&T Stadium. But I expect that, I think a lot of Razorback fans are going down for the game. I know I have a lot of friends going down. Cowboys play on the next day, so it's a 2-for-1 trip for a lot of people. And don't forget, or maybe you don't know this, but the largest alumni base for the University of Arkansas is in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And so you have a lot of people who live there that just go to the game. So it's going to be fun. It's a great environment. I mean, it's like a bowl game where there is one side of the stadium excited after every single play. So when you're in an atmosphere like that, every single play, somebody is cheering. So that makes it for a fun game.
Yeah. Wes, I know you got a tight schedule today. You got the Touchdown Club. You got your show. Who's speaking at the Little Rock Touchdown Club today?
We got Peyton Hillis today, fellas, and it should be very emotional, probably inspiring, after almost losing his life on the beach down in Destin this year. So I can't wait to get Peyton. Peyton will join us on the radio show around 11:15, and then we'll take his speech live from the podium at 12:15. Go listen to us, 1037thebuzz.com, or download the Buzz app, and you can listen right there on your phone.
Well, Peyton Hillis is from Conway, Arkansas, home of the Conway, Arkansas Wampus Cats. Wes, that's one of the greatest names in America, but be as objective as you can, living in Little Rock and covering the UCA Bears for ESPN Plus. Is it as cool a nickname as the Fighting Okra of Delta State University in Cleveland, Mississippi? I mean, I want? I want a Fighting Okra t-shirt and a Conway Wampus Cats hat. If I send you the money via Venmo, can you get that for me?
I can probably find one for you. Surely somebody ought to be able to give me one.
How about the Santa Cruz banana slugs out in California? I think There are some good nicknames out there, though. You got to admit. I mean, what is it? The Arkansas Tech is what, the Wonder Boys?
Yeah.
Wonder Boys. Yeah.
Yep. Isn't that in Russellville, West, Arkansas Tech?
It is. Yep.
As a small boy, the son of an architect, I took some of the weirdest family trips ever because it would always be based around Dad going to do some architecture work or have a meeting with the building people at said university. We did go to Russellville one time. I'll never forget going there and the nickname the Wonder Boys. And again, I don't know. I was a young boy. I was about 14 going through Houston one time, guys. And my dad, there was a sticker on a car that said Sam Houston State University. My dad said, boy, you wouldn't believe the old initials they used to have for that university. It was the Sam Houston Institute of Technology. And I don't know if my dad was kidding with me or not. He's 95 and he's listening. But think about those initials for the Sam Houston Institute of Technology. Was he kidding with me, Wes? You know Texas pretty well.
You know what? I lived in Texas my whole life, and I've never heard that before.
Okay. Well, Dad, you were fooling me.
Institute Technology.
Yeah, I just thought about it.
I got another Texan standing here in the elevator with me. He's never heard that either.
Yeah, it's Sam Houston State University.
Well, before you go, Wes, I got to tell you, I was my dad's boss, when we got exiled to Mississippi, was an LSU alum. And so his son, Rob, and I got to go down to ball games when we were 13, 14 years old. And LSU had a great cheer about Rice University. And being an old Texas boy, you can understand this. What comes out of Chinaman's butt comes the cheerleader, and everybody hollered Rice.
Holy cow. Rice, I mean, I'm going to tell you what, these nicknames, the Banana Slugs, the Wonder Boys, and the Wampus Cats. But Wes, look, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate you taking time. Y'all have a great show. I'll be listening on that app, and also have a great time at the Touchdown Club. Appreciate everything you do covering sports in Arkansas, high school as well, Fox Sports Channel 16. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Y'all have a great week. Talk to you next
week. You too. Okay, we'll do it. And Wes does such a great job of covering all the sports all over Arkansas. And again, he does a great job, Franz, covering the high school football in Arkansas. And like Dudley Dawson does, hogville.net, does a phenomenal job. You know, there's over 200 high schools in Arkansas, and Dudley's got his hogville.net, does an incredible job covering college. But he also, Fearless Fridays, goes to the high schools. I think he's pushing 80 of the high schools out of over 200 in Arkansas that play high school football. He's visited. He's going to get to all 200 of them. And you know they keep expanding and building more and more of them. But look, we run out of time. It's the Carol Burnett Show, friends. I'm so glad. I just can't sing it. I can't sing. But Franz, you're a tenor. I think you sang.
I tell you what,
you sang at the Met, didn't you?
No, but I used to sing in a nightclub in Taiwan. So
there you go. There you go.
Yeah. I was the minister of music at the International Baptist Church in Seoul, Korea. But you know, gosh, you bring up Carol Burnett. That the Mama's Family segments that they do.
Oh my God, that
still some of the funniest stuff. There's this one you can find it on YouTube, because something like Aunt May's or Aunt Liz's funeral or something. It's the funeral, and that's one of the funny segments there's ever been on anything.
Carol Burnett at 90 years old is just amazing, absolutely amazing. I mean, I do love that show. But hey, thanks to all of our listeners, our viewers, our sponsors. Tomorrow, that first hour brought to you by Rumble Boxing Gym. rumbleboxing.com. Look them up on our website, sidelines.live. Rumble Boxing, 1835 Union Avenue, Midtown Memphis. 45 minutes. That's the length of a prize fight. We're going to cover a lot. We got a great show in store for you tomorrow. Hey, folks, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Study civics, your responsibilities and obligations as a citizen of the United States. Learn about this great country's history, our Constitution, and why so many people have fought and given all they had for our freedoms, like the First Amendment, free speech. We're not constricted, nor are we constrained. We tell it like it is on Sidelines 6 days a week. So tune in tomorrow and listen live or at your leisure. Until then, we are out of here.